Welcome, welcome, welcome. Looks like we're live. So welcome to episode 9 of the On Trac podcast. I am your host, Jonathan, and if this is your first time here, On Trac is, of course, the show where we bring you all the latest and the juiciest developments from the OriginTrail ecosystem and the verifiable internet for AI that the OriginTrail technology is enabling. Last episode we had was a very special one because we recorded it live on the, well, not live, but in person on the ground from DKG V8 2024. So definitely go back and check that one out if you haven't heard it yet. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, basically everywhere that podcasts are found. But this time we're back to our usual live stream format, and I'm joined by 2 out of my 3 usual co-hosts. We've got Branimir and Žiga, 2 of the co-founders of OriginTrail, hoping that Tomaž will be able to hop on in a bit. But for now, you're stuck with just the 3 of us. So welcome, man. How you doing today?
Pretty good. Thank you. This week, I believe tomorrow is Thanksgiving in the US, right?
It's Thanksgiving, and I'm hopeful that you will give us some alpha to be thankful for during today's episode.
Some Thanksgiving. Actually, this year is the first time I'm invited to a Thanksgiving dinner without a turkey by one of our colleagues. Yuri's wife is actually American, so
that's right. Yeah.
There's gonna be a Thanksgiving in Europe as well.
How about you, Brana? How are you doing?
Doing okay. Have a little bit of a cold, so apologize for my voice. But otherwise, it's good. It's exciting times. Really exciting stuff.
Even with your cold, I will not be taking it any easier on you. So prepare for the toughest questions of them all.
Yes, hit me.
So this time, obviously, we're back with our usual live stream format. And this episode, I think, is going to be another one for the books, just based on the tweet that Žiga put out earlier today of all the exciting stuff that's going on. So we'll be digging into that stuff. We'll be digging into the developments that are coming in the near future, the impending V8 launch, some exciting new economic incentives that will be coming to OriginTrail, and Žiga and more. And so again, I think the and more is going to be kind of exciting this time. So I guess to kick things off, the last time we spoke, again, was at DKG Con. We actually, the 4 of us got together the day after DKG Con ended and kind of reflected on the experience, how it went for you. And so I'm wondering, now that the dust has settled a bit, it's about a month past when DKG Con ended. So you've had some time to reflect on the event a little bit. Is there any new enlightenments, reflections, anything that you've been thinking about in the last month that has kind of come to you as you've thought back about the experience and the excitement that was the OriginTrail community gathering for that event?
Yeah, I think the highlight for me was just the sheer amount of cool ideas that were presented by just random discussions, both on stage, but also, over a beer. We just discussed some of those before this with this live broadcast started, and it was very interesting to see how quickly people can start generating new ideas for pairnets and products on the DKG, which was really, really exciting for me personally, but it also just generally there's a lot of things that are sort of the after effect of the conference. Not just staying, but also continuing the discussions with all of the partners that were there and expanding that. So with folks like Amazon, Google, we are constantly working, and it's maybe not as visible as it is on the conference, but there's a lot of cool developments there as well. So yeah, I'd guess that would be the 2 highlights for me: sheer ideas and just like a lot of parallel developments that are happening at the same time.
Anything you want to add, Žiga?
Yeah, I echo Branimir's sentiment. It was really wonderful to see people from all corners of the world coming together. For the first time ever, we have hosted such a conference at a location which actually allows for such a logistics for people from all winds of the world, from Australia, India, US, Europe, to come together, and also other places, and discuss the exciting possibilities of OriginTrail ecosystem, and also some tangible things that have been achieved so far. And since OriginTrail right now is at the cusp of one of the biggest updates with the V8, which will drastically improve not just the scalability, but also the possibilities for other builders to propose an even more enriched future for the DKG, and through the incentives that are built into the V8, and furthermore through the Collective Programmatic Treasury, the time really was ripe at the DKG Con in Amsterdam to bring the bunch together and to discuss the exciting future. And I'm still getting goosebumps when I'm talking about the experience in Amsterdam, and I believe the atmosphere was really palpable there. Jonathan, you were there, and I think from the other side, I'll be curious to hear your thoughts of how you felt, how was it, how was that experience for you? But for us on the other side, it was really the energy was there, and it feels that we are the time is right to kick OriginTrail's gear few notches higher, and have this new update really to fly and to shine in the fullest extent. We had institutional supporters coming there. We had family offices, so we had investors. It was great to hear from also Porsche family office, for their that they will continuously pledge support to OriginTrail. It was great to see people from Google, from Amazon, discussing how OriginTrail is being used. And the track record, no pun intended, really shows that OriginTrail is a very versatile technology that is currently really ripping or banging it in many important industries, even the nascent ones such as decentralized science, where OriginTrail is the kind of the let's say the leading project. Then Branimir really made sure that we were noticed at the MIT, so that was prior to the Amsterdam's event. So a lot of support has been kind of garnered within this year, and it's coming to fruition towards the end of this year, and we're really looking forward to see things go further, even faster, with even more power coming together from mustering forces from more builders. So that's kind of the main takeaway, and it's really empowering.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely had a great time at DKG Con. And to echo kind of Branimir's point, I think what was especially fun about it was that it was like a little community. And so like going out and getting beers with the presenters, the attendees, the co-founders of OriginTrail, it's like everybody was a big family. And to the point where, a community member can come and chat with one of the co-founders of the project without giving the details away what they were chatting about, about ideas for like implementations that could be built on OriginTrail is very cool. I don't think there's a lot of conferences you can go to where you get the opportunity to really connect with the organizers of the event in such a really interpersonal way, where it really did feel like one big family. Yeah, I definitely one of my most favorite conferences I've been to was DKG Con, and everybody I talked to who was there and attended, I think, had pretty much the same takeaway.
I'm glad you said that about just people being open and approachable, because that is really the fabric of the OriginTrail ecosystem, and the people in this ecosystem, including the core developers, that's the way we are. We're very open and inclusive and just generally chill people, which is something you don't always encounter. So, for example, I was at many conferences, and many of the times, there's this sort of founder Jesus sort of figure, that is not approachable and that, is put on a pedestal, which is to me completely opposite of what we're trying to achieve with decentralization and Web3. So we don't want a kind of a person like that in general. And I think it's a very rare and good quality of the ecosystem. And that's what I would also like to add, that everybody is super welcome and invited to join us for the next DKG Con, and really for wherever we are at these conferences around the world. I was just in Bangkok as well at several events there, Sub-Zero, Singularity Net event, and some other events around DevCon. And if you happen to be there, super happy to meet you, grab a beer, chat, hear what kind of ideas you have, especially if you're a builder. I'm super excited to talk with anybody, but especially with builders, because that's my nature. And yeah, I think it's a very important quality, and that over time it's going to show much more, to be a much more important factor than it is so far. So super happy you said that.
So we have a lot to get into today, I should say. I want to give a quick shout out to those I see that have left comments or in the chat watching live at this moment. We got Trini Zone, Simon Puko, apologize if I'm saying your name wrong, CBRO, Olamide Deborah, Luca, Angry Mob, Javier, BRX, Tiki40, Mr. P. Thank you all for chiming in and leaving comments. We love to see the engagement. And if people have questions, we're going to try to save a few minutes at the end to answer any questions that come up during the live stream. So don't be afraid to go ahead and ask them. So I guess to really get into the meat of the conversation and the discussion now here, I mean, it seems obvious to me, maybe not everybody has this perspective, but OriginTrail to me has always kind of been at the forefront of these real world use cases, driving real world adoption. And scalability is one of the big topics that comes up all the time. And it's one of the big focuses as well as V8. And so with the V8 launch imminent, and I know we'll get into later what the timeline of everything is, but with the V8 launch imminent, the V8 Testnet already having produced lots of exciting results, how do you see the V8 launch, kind of increasing this adoption and redefining what may even be possible in terms of the decentralized knowledge graph?
Yeah, we were like very early to the adoption of knowledge graphs, or even more so decentralized knowledge graph as a pioneering project, delivering such an ambitious technology. Back in 2018-19, when we launched the version 1, was really hardly scalable. Back then, I think our node runners were celebrating when the daily throughput for knowledge asset, or back then it was called the jobs, I think it reached 100 or 200, and that was the reason for celebration. And then in the coming few years, that number of course went up to a couple of thousand. Again, we were all super excited. Then in the previous couple of years, it went from 2,000 to 10,000, and then recently this year to 100,000 knowledge assets per day. Which again was a huge reason to celebrate. And now again we're on the cusp to really see this change and huge uptake in scalability with the version 8, which actually comes at the right time when a more broad spectrum of builders and companies are coming in and proposing and actually already building their solutions on the kind of the precursor to the V8 network V6, and the scale needed in those new use cases absolutely staggering, and that's why we call it internet scale. So if we're now able to, or have been able to deliver, let's say 100,000 knowledge assets per day as kind of a maximum on the V6, Now with the V8, we're pursuing 1000x scalability. Why, again, is that needed? We have users like very much well-known builders and also internet platforms, or a website which is seeking to publish even up to few millions of knowledge assets in a single day. And that is, here you go, the internet scale demand, straight from just one use case, from one solution, from one builder. And of course, the ambition here is that we can serve that the DKG, Decentralized Knowledge Graph, as a backbone for this collective neuro-symbolic AI, can actually cater to more builders, more users at the same time, not just one single user. So here, with this, the importance of version 8 really increases. And the time is ripe for us to be rolling out the V8 in the coming weeks. And the RFC has really shown that the community has a very good understanding when it comes to not just the necessity and the mechanics to scale the version 8, but also the incentives that are being proposed and are going to be, in a way, enshrined in the protocol, incentivizing and encouraging the builders to come in to publish and be well positioned as publishers, and also on the other hand, the track holders to pretty much vote with their track as to which project, which node they will support, and in that way slowly kind of build economic incentives for builders to start deploying great solutions. And we heard not just at the Amsterdam's DKG conference, there are plenty of very great ideas coming from builders, larger and small. Larger, I mean like builders coming from Amazon to solopreneurs that are also proposing amazing solutions. So there's this wisdom of the crowd that needs to be somehow incited through the new means of incentivization that are coming to play with V8, and then in the next year with the Collective Programmatic Treasury, which is also described in the RFC. The Collective Programmatic Treasury is going to allow pretty much for the creation of several of such builders, such as we are, the core development organization behind OriginTrail, which conceived it all. But now we're seeking to kind of open up doors to those who, by merit, can show that they can contribute to the growth of the ecosystem, to the growth of the knowledge base, trusted knowledge base on the DKG, and thus be eligible to also take part in the future development of the OriginTrail, and be have an access based again on the merit, which is how they grow the knowledge, the DKG. So what their investment is into growing the network. So based on that criteria, that they'll also be able to tap into the Collective Programmatic Treasury, which I think the number right now is set to 60 million track, which is right now about 50 to 60 million USD. So quite a formidable stack of value that is intended to kind of augment or enrich the rules of the game for the coming decade, even where we want to have more builders beside us and have them propose solutions which perhaps we would have never dared to think about. So perhaps that's a wrapper around the V8 and the necessity and the cool stuff which is being brought about by this collective neuro-symbolic AI approach, also detailed in the RFC.
Yeah, I think that's a great intro to the topic. Anything you wanted to add, Brana, before we move on?
Yeah, I think continuing on what Žiga said, one great example lately that we can also highlight as an area that fits perfectly well to knowledge graphs and the DKG, that decentralized science. And we've seen a lot of momentum recently there. If you're following what's going on in the industry, that's OriginTrail is basically considered is ranked the #1 project in this category, and for a good reason. So there's already builders who are taking this further and building their own collective neurosymbolic AI agents that are intended to basically collect, crowdsource rather, a very large group of, or very large corpus of knowledge that is to be fed into this neurosymbolic AI. So not just let's say the LLMs per se, but rather very big role played by knowledge graphs, where these are to produce new research, new IP, if you will, and this new IP and research to be shared among somehow the participants in the decentralized science project. And this is just one of the projects that is happening right now on the DKG, but we're actually seeing a lot of interest from the wider DeSci community. And this is just, again, one area that is kind of very visibly growing and is going to require the scalability that V8 is going to bring. There's also quite a lot of that interest coming in from other areas as well. And we've been we're really very busy scaling up the whole system, both in terms of how we can publish more on the blockchain side of things, so how we can scale up the transaction throughput, and how we can use those transactions more efficiently, so that we don't spend too much of the blockchain resources if we don't need so. We need to do so, and then also on the knowledge graph side, which is not just doesn't just contain like a storage component. That's more, let's say, the more trivial side of it. The more important side of it is actually production of knowledge. So that's where edge nodes, which are coming with, or really these new features of coming with the V8 to edge and core nodes, enable knowledge mining directly on the node itself, enable DRAG, which is the other side of querying this knowledge in a neurosymbolic way, and also very scalable publishing service that is able to benefit from this scalability. So what we're looking for is 100 to 1,000x, depending on particularities of the use case. But ultimately speaking, it's been a very interesting journey, and I'm glad to see that it's picking up in many different sectors, especially in science. I'm a big fan of the whole idea behind this side, and looking really forward to see where this is going to go. Because once you build out a public knowledge graph of reusable knowledge that is usable across any project, and it's by default is composable with usual knowledge graphs. So you can think of this as kind of knowledge graph of knowledge graphs approach. And it's very, very well pluggable into all of the super fast advancing AI tools and systems such as LLMs. So it's going to be very exciting in the next coming months, especially after V8 launches, to see how this scalability unlocks and makes basically a bunch of projects and new areas flourish when V8 is here. So can't wait, honestly, for it to be out.
For sure, yeah. And we're going to dig into a lot of the stuff that both of you said. We're going to get into the programmatic treasury. We're going to get into AI. And I think one of the kind of fun or interesting, unique things about OriginTrail, Žiga, you were mentioning that it's ranked the #1 AI project on, I think it's CoinMarketCap, where it's ranked the #1 DeSci project on CoinMarketCap. And it's also falls in the AI category. You know, it could fall into the supply chain category. That's what I think makes it so unique and interesting, is that I can't think of a single industry or sector where you couldn't plug the DKG into and somehow make it more efficient, or somehow help power whatever revolution is going on in that unique sector. So speaking of AI and the DKG Con, which we were reflecting on earlier, one of the speakers at the DKG Con was Gary Marcus, who is kind of dubbed like the foremost AI critic. He notoriously grilled OpenAI CEO Sam Altman in front of Congress, I think he's written maybe some books on AI as well. And he presented one of the I think it was a fireside chat at the DKG Con, and he dubbed AI as quote unquote brilliantly stupid. And he's the first to talk to you about all the flaws that AI may have. And so one of the ways that OriginTrail tries to address this, the potential flaws of AI, is through this approach of collective neuro-symbolic AI. And this is going to be amplified with the DKG V8. So how exactly, very quickly, what exactly is collective neuro-symbolic AI? I know we've covered it in the past before, but briefly, kind of refresher, what is it? And how does it help improve upon generative AI and sort of the artificial intelligence solutions as we understand them in kind of the popular use today?
Let me unpack the collective neuro-symbolic AI with each one of those words. The neuro side comes from neural nets being the basis of generative AI. So neural AI is really the booming AI that we see over the last couple of years, ChatGPT, Gemini, and the others, all of these LLMs. And the reason they're called neural is they're using these neural networks, and their defining characteristic is that these neural networks are really good guessers. So, for example, you can give it a sentence, which can be a question, for example, and it's going to be really good at guessing the next word, and then the next word, and the next word, and so on. Because it's been trained on a lot of text, it statistically, almost magically, is able to answer to something. But you might kind of already sort of sense that this might be problematic in things that require precision, such as math or physics or even coding. So in those tasks, they're actually not that great because they're not of statistical nature. So often it says that these neural LLMs or neural AIs hallucinate, and that being a bug and something that you can kind of figure out. But actually, it's not a bug; it's a feature. It's how they work. That's all they do. They all only hallucinate. On the other side, symbolic AI is this more mature branch of AI. It's been around for longer, and it's best embodied in knowledge graphs. And knowledge graphs have been adopted by all of the big companies: Google, Amazon, Netflix, you name it. Everybody has it. That's the original AI that has been suggesting you shows and things to buy and giving you the best search results and so forth. And the defining characteristic of symbolic AI is that it is very rational. So it's not creative, it's rather operates on the basis of symbols, just like math operates on the basis of symbols. You have symbols for operations, you have symbols for numbers, and then combining those two, you can make very, very strict descriptions of natural phenomena, for example, in physics and so on. And this neural and symbolic really sort of mimic the way the brain works, the left and right brain, one being creative, the other one being the rational mathematical one. Basically, when you combine these two types of AI, neural AI and symbolic AI, you get neurosymbolic AI, and those two components cancel cancel each other's flaws. So if you apply it right, you can use the symbolic nature, the rational where you need, and the creative where you need it. For example, knowledge graph, symbolic AI, they're generally very non-creative. That's kind of their flaw. While on the other side, they were precise. So neurosymbolic AI is pretty much an architecture that combines symbolic knowledge graphs with neural models, LLMs. And in the world of OriginTrail, symbolic represented embodied in the DKG, while the neural is embodied by NeuroWeb, the NeuroWeb blockchain, which is the basically innovation hub for OriginTrail, for multimodal agents that are registered on chain and can do all kinds of operations on chain. They can even own knowledge or currency or basically anything that we people can do on chain, they can also do as well. And this sort of combination of these two, the synergy of these two technologies, brings about the nature of a decentralized version of a neurosymbolic AI, to which this collective sort of word applies to, or collective. What we specifically mean by it is that it's obviously a decentralized technology, so not running by one organization or by one entity or whoever, but on multiple layers, on the blockchain layer, on the knowledge graph layer, and on the ownership layer and decision making, if you will, layer, collectively combines the efforts of both many humans and AIs together. So that also means that the human is always in the loop. So, for example, the incentives we have mentioned previously are, even though they're programmatic and they are transparently to be issued on NeuroWeb blockchain, they also have the human in the loop in the form of decentralized, fully transparent governance. Which is a very big feature of NeuroWeb, the blockchain. It's one of the probably the most advanced governance systems on the planet ever invented and ever implemented. It's been tested in various environments in the Polkadot ecosystem, not just on the Polkadot itself, but on the other projects, the 50-ish blockchains that are running in Polkadot, and of which many implement governance. Which is really a very interesting innovation, because we've never had such a transparent type of, let's say, voting. If you see the elections in the last decade, in pretty much every country, there's a lot of suspicion of what happened with ballots here and there, and this was just another recent topic in the US, right? Well, some such problems are like obsolete on NeuroWeb. So collective neuro-symbolic AI is really this combination of neural AI, symbolic AI, and human AI, or human eye, human intelligence, which collectively steers the future with the biggest knowledge base in the world that is trusted, and it is the basis for building the actual safe and verifiable AI versus AI that hallucinates and might cause quite a bit of trouble. And we actually seen that like a lot of enterprises that we worked with, that we've seen implement OriginTrail and implement all kinds of AIs, quickly converge on this conclusion that you can just not use LLMs by themselves. So, for example, Swiss Railways, they use the DKG in combination with LLMs, where they're able to audit their trains, specifically wheels, tracks, all kinds of things, to ensure safety of their network. So what they do is basically they do predictive maintenance of all of their real world assets, if you will. And they couldn't do this just with LLMs. You cannot you cannot guess your way into sort of figuring out which train should be serviced. You need hard, real data that comes from the actual tracks, from measurements. And then when you get this data, if it's just raw, still you cannot squeeze it into an LLM and get something useful. Or even if you could, it might be very prohibitively expensive. What you really want to do is contextualize it, organize it in the right way, knowledge graph way, and then use LLMs with it. That's the winning combination. And we've seen that across many, many different enterprises. So Gary Marcus is indeed right. LLMs are brilliant and stupid, but they are very creative. So think of it as kind of your drunk musician, bohemian musician that creates amazing things, but maybe you wouldn't let him drive a bus because, well, he's bohemian.
I'm going to steal that example. I don't know when I'm going to use it, but I'm going to use it for something.
I love those analogies. Yeah, they just come out from nowhere. I don't know. Some internal LLM works like that.
So you might have just answered two. I had, as you were talking, I was thinking of two follow-up questions, and you kind of answered both of them as we were going along. One, which was, so that the NeuroWeb connects with the neuro part of the symbolic AI, which you just addressed. And then I was going to ask as well, what a good example is of a use case built atop the DKG that implements this neuro-symbolic AI and might improve upon the experience that you might get with just an LLM. And you mentioned the Swiss the Swiss railways. My favorite, everyone knows, if you listen to the show, my favorite example to bring up is always the chickens. But yeah, I don't know if you have like another example of somebody, whether a real life example currently now or sort of a theoretical example of how this sort of advancement in AI practically makes a difference in terms of interacting with an AI application or using one for your business.
Yeah, there are like theoretical examples, but there are also practical examples within areas where precision is absolutely of paramount importance, such as science or decentralized science for that matter. You cannot. So science is about seeking truth, and LLMs are about insinuating, about basically creating something based on certain vectors, based on the LLMs trained. So science is definitely an area, or decentralized science, where this symbolic partner to the neural AI is absolutely necessary. Then, in practical terms, we're working to protect the world IP, or pretty much the creator's IP, from the movies to some other stuff. There is actually a pretty formidable team right now, not yet disclosed, but they are also providing their side of the patents to which is basically a mechanism which is capable of recognizing the similarity in the in content across many websites, so across pretty much thousands or 10,000s, millions of websites, by also enshrining millions of knowledge assets basically on the DKG, and then being able to do similarity search across the web, seeking things that are prohibited, illicit, that constitute IP violation, for instance. And such an approach or such a system would have never been able to be built on purely LLM underpinning. So the Neuro-Symbolic AI based on the DKG is a very called for approach here. And because it's decentralized, and because it's not the data, the knowledge is not owned by us, it is rather owned by those who are using it. This is an offer one cannot refuse, if I may take out the line from The Godfather. And this is actually the main driver, the why the companies, builders, large and very large and small, come to us, and they're seeking advice, and sooner rather than later they decide to get their hands dirty and start producing like very cool stuff. I mean, we started this project back in 2011 for basically for to improve the safety and let's say the cleanliness when it came to food supply chain. So that was the rudimentary beginning back in 2010, 11, 12. And the sectors that we found ourselves in, haven't told my parents about it, but it's pretty awesome. It's pretty unexpected at the same time. And we also see the leading or multi-billion decentralized AI projects utilizing the DKG even without us knowing, and then we see that they have implemented it. So it's really cool to see this Cambrian explosion where established players like well-known companies and the builders from Web3 and outside of Web3 are coming in and just taking the technology and building something cool with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some of the people that you work with, you're probably never going to be able to disclose who they are. But I'm
never say never. No, but
okay.
Not at this point, everyone. But yeah,
but I'm very curious to see.
We're not going to brag, but there will be signs.
I'm going to take that literally to mean that maybe some OriginTrail logos or DKG logos might start appearing on websites, which would be pretty cool. To breadcrumbs to discover when you're browsing the web.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. And of course, that certainly there are going to be events in the few months or the next month, the January next year, where perhaps more things can be disclosed than during December. We'll see. Definitely things that where DKG is being applied, they leave a mark, and sooner rather than later they get noticed.
So let's move into what any builders who may be listening to this episode might be most interested in, which is this idea of there being new incentive mechanisms for builders with the V8 launch and the programmable treasury that will be coming with V8. So can you talk a little bit about what that's going to look like and how you see that accelerating the growth and the impact of the DKG?
Yeah, it's a really important element to the whole ecosystem, because it's it really drives both the creativity, as we mentioned at the beginning, but also new novel implementations of the DKG and new knowledge being added to it. And we really took the quote by Charlie Munger, the late Charlie Munger, to heart, who said, show me the incentives, I'll show the outcome. So we really wanted to make sure that incentives of the ecosystem are set right. And the word in our world of Web3, we call it incentives. In the world of AI, I could even say alignment, which is a very big topic, and which is also another thing that Gary Marcus criticizes OpenAI for, which is the total misalignment with the society. He even thinks they will become basically a surveillance type business model project, which is actually completely the opposite over what OriginTrail is about. So OriginTrail is about actually allowing everybody to keep ownership of their data and knowledge, ensuring privacy where they want to, but also enabling sharing in various ways, both completely publicly, but also in ways where you can share among certain parties. That's where paranets come, for example, a lot into play. So having that said, the incentives need to be tuned in the right direction, and that's where the approach to incentivize both the builders on the DKG and the builders of the DKG itself, which we are hoping to see many more talented folks come in to do. I'm excited that I've seen in the DKG Con both the sort of the newcomers to the knowledge graph world, but also the old OGs, such as Charles Ivey, for example, from Amazon, and Ben Clinch, and the guys who have been who are top 10 experts on knowledge graphs in the world. They to really jump on board the idea and not just sort of integrate with OriginTrail, but actually get interested in how they can get their hands dirty and expand the ecosystem. So essentially, through the ability to scale horizontally and through the collective programmatic treasury, you as a builder, you get in a way a privilege to co-build the DKG, getting support of the collective programmatic treasury, the CPT. The collective programmatic treasury, in order for it to incentivize the right behavior, it has to be fully aligned with what we want to see with the DKG in long term, which is we want to see it grow. We want to see more knowledge there. We want to see different kinds of knowledge in there, many different paranets, experiments, different AI services built on top of the DKG, different integrations. So all these things are very, very beneficial to the ecosystem, but ultimately should produce a footprint in creating new knowledge that is reusable, that is something that can be that is shared within the ecosystem collectively. So therefore, the collective programmatic treasury is essentially implemented based on this key meritocratic factor, which is how much new knowledge you are adding into the DKG. That's how that's basically the proportion to which you as a builder are eligible to be incentivized by the collective programmatic treasury. The important part here, though, again, as I mentioned previously, is that there's always a human in the loop. So it's not, for example, like Bitcoin, where there's a programmatic way of emitting with each block a certain amount of Bitcoins, and then having that every 4 years, which is completely encoded in the protocol and very hard or even almost impossible to change. Pardon me. The idea here is that with NeuroWeb, all of the ecosystem is in basically acts as the human in the loop or humans in the loop. So having the ability to vote in or out certain ideas, which then qualify or not qualify for the collective programmatic treasury. And because this is a very new concept, and very, as you mentioned, it's applicable across different industries. It's the system is more complex than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is, even though it's groundbreaking, it's kind of, let's say, simple in that sense. So you can kind of create a predictable plan and ensure that, because it's simple, it acts like that. It's kind of like a calculator. While here it's a neuro-symbolic AI system, so there's always new things showing up, and there's a lot of learning along the way. That's why we're talking about version 8. We're launching version 8 because not because we've just been sitting around on our hands. We've been learning with each new version, and there've been so many learnings that have pushed the boundary every time, that we expect those learnings to come up again. And when those learnings are there, that we as humans in the loop can continue developing it, versus the way Bitcoin, for example, is sort of stagnating. You could see it as a feature of Bitcoin. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's not an approach that OriginTrail or Collective Neuro-Symbolic AI needs. So having that said, back to the CPT. The CPT is really designed for that. It's designed to long-term emit 60 million track with kind of a halvening system, though not 4 years, but each 2 years, emitting a significant portion of the treasury, half of the remaining treasury every time, so that these collective programmatic emissions are in line with the growth of the DKG. And the important, kind of the big metric here, the thing that keeps everything together, that glues it all together, is really track, the token. So everything that revolves around the utility and the growth of the DKG is measured in track. That means, yes, we measure knowledge assets as well, which is the amount of knowledge in there. But track, you can see, as kind of the proxy of the size of knowledge, the proxy of the size of somebody's commitment, security stake, essentially it measures all the very various important components of the system. The fees are also measured in track. So the incentives of the system of V8 as well, outside of just the collective programmatic treasury, the incentives structure is designed so that it rewards those who grow the DKG, who run the infrastructure reliably, who provide a significant portion of economic stake, or putting their money where their mouth is, if you will, in the system, but also not being greedy at the same time. And you could see that in the RFC as well. There's a component in the tokenomics that sort of drives fees over time to be lower. Otherwise, if they grow, then the growth of the ecosystem would be impeded. So essentially, these key parameters, they're all measured in track, which is the beauty of it, but it's also very important to the implementation of the DKG, because it makes things much less complex. Complexity is an enemy of every technical system, and usually the cause of problems, bugs, things like that. So the less complex the system is, the better it is, and that's where our track is the key component that enables this programmatic incentivization across the entire ecosystem. Yeah, I think, did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, you definitely provided a lot of information. I wanted to ask you, what can the builders who receive money from this programmatic treasury, what can they use the track for? Is it specifically for building applications? Is it like, I don't know, is there some other purpose that it's being emitted for that they can use it for?
Yeah, it's to advance the infrastructure in any way they deem fit. And since those will be the builders who will have accrued a lot of karma by the time they become eligible to also use part of the treasury to build what they will set out to build. They will likely set out to build things that they have noticed they miss on the protocol, on the DKG. So they will be well informed, at least that the expectation is. And in case, of course, if there's at the off chance there will be a rogue player, there is always this human in the loop element of community, NeuroWeb community, that can vote out such a builder. But it's always the expenses related to the future development fund or the collective programmatic treasury is always based on the planned development. And typically such builders, especially the ones that will have accrued a lot of let's say access to the programmatic treasury, will have to communicate and will have to present and likely also be in a similar shoes as we are today, propose an RFC, collect comments, and then act upon it and develop or enact changes, propose updates, and actually build updates on the network in many different directions. So Neuro-Symbolic AI, Collective Neuro-Symbolic AI is a very wide notion, and it will touch into the spheres such as agentic networks, which are becoming popular. So someone who wants to build a network of agents on the DKG might identify a need to upgrade something on the DKG in order to support such an agentic network, and they will be able to do so using the value, portions of the value from the collective programmatic treasury. So bottom line is the collective programmatic treasury is always intended to be used to expand the value on the decentralized knowledge graph, and it's definitely not intended for for some discretionary spending not related to the positive future or positive outcomes in the OriginTrail ecosystem. It's a unique approach. We do recognize that. But we feel strongly that we can afford such an unique approach because OriginTrail has always been based on the merit, and the same merit, which is how much you will have invested and will have accrued in terms of the knowledge assets you have created, is going to be the main parameter for the unlocking of portions of the Future Development Fund, Collective Programmatic Treasury, for each builder that is participating. So the core thesis is very sound in terms of the meritocracy it brings to this mechanism.
Mm. And then one other quick question. The RFC also mentions that there is a fund for Paranet developers to repay the Trac that they spend to publish assets onto the DKG. Is this the same thing, or is that something separate?
That's a much smaller thing. I believe that you're referring to the Inception program for DKG Edge node builders. DKG Edge being one of the centerpiece technologies that are coming into play with the new DKG V8. And the acceleration of this component is actually has been pretty much progressing on the V6 already. So already throughout the V6 DKG Edge node phase, builders are eligible to apply for the Inception program, in which they are entitled, if they of course provide evidence that they have used the DKG Edge node to publish on the network, they're able to reimburse their publishing costs. So this one is it's limited in terms of the sizing, so it's much smaller, and at the same time it's limited solely to publishing. So you get a reimbursement. Reasoning being that the new publishers, they still need to get their hands dirty. They might be doing some, let's say, not very optimal publishings in terms of the knowledge assets they create. So we figured that for them it might make sense to help them out and and if they procure track and spend it and publish, they will get it reimbursed after, of course, they have provided, they have published what they intended to publish. So it's clearly separated from the Collective Programmatic Treasury. Also, in terms of the timeline, the Collective Programmatic Treasury will be enacted sometimes at the end of Q1, March next year. So it's clearly a separated thing, and the inception program is pretty much enacted now. Anyone can participate in it, apply, and then start publishing.
So point being, now is the time to start building, because there are incentives now.
Yeah.
If you're building, and there's incentives coming later if you're building. So
there's
just
no excuses.
Just start building.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the timeline for the Treasury to launch. When can we expect V8? Obviously, this is going to be a part of V8, but what's the V8 timeline? When's it going to hit us? I need to prepare for my mind to be blown, and so I wanna best know how to go about doing that.
Yeah, so the V8 timeline looks generally like this. We're gonna see the initial version, which is going to bring scalability and basically we'll see edge nodes come out of beta in December. That's going to be V8.0, and that is going to enable this feature that we probably heard of before, called batch minting. So we'll be able to mint multiple knowledge assets in one transaction, hundreds of them, and essentially the knowledge assets evolve into a kind of a new kind of improved kind of knowledge assets. So that's the big improvement that V8 brings. Instead of knowledge assets being containers of knowledge, that this was the initial paradigm. Kind of like books are containers of knowledge, but you kind of have like papers and squiggles in between, like Carl Sagan likes to explain it. Instead of that, the book talks about, for example, you can take, I don't know, the Terminator or whatever. Terminator is in the book. Maybe the Foundation. The Foundation has characters and planets and all these things, and so this content that used to be just something that was kind of squeezed into a knowledge asset, now actually those entities become knowledge assets. The full primitives of the knowledge graph, the entities that connect among each other, are now going to be basically batch mintable. And they also, the UALs themselves are now going to be globally unique ownable identifiers of these entities, which is actually getting a very good, it's resonating really well with enterprises, because it's an important feature needed if you want to do anything cross-organizational, if you want to, let's say, identify the same object or the same person or whatever thing, you want to have one globally unique identifier that you can control. So with V8.0 coming in December, we're going to see that. We're going to see scalability. We're going to see new type of knowledge assets. And with that, the edge nodes, all of the new features such as the knowledge mining APIs, the DRAG APIs, all of these things that have been being built for the last year, they're all coming into productive environment. What does the productive environment mean, though? Well, since we launched the 8.0, we're going to go into something called a tuning period. So some things we can only go so far by testing the actual code on devnets and testnets, but we cannot really test for real economic impact, because we need real economic primitives, the tokens that have value, track, the actual track, not the test track, to really see how the system behaves in real life. We've seen, for example, on testnet that, since that component is not really on the table in the way it's going to be on the mainnet, rather we had certain pool of 100,000 tokens as an incentive for people running nodes on the testnet. It was very quickly obvious that we got too many nodes, and then not everybody was happy by, let's say, spending time and money on running certain infrastructure, which is not an easy thing to do, and then receiving less of a reward than they might have expected. And in order for that to be realistic and for the expectations to be set right, that's why we need track, the real track on mainnet. So the tuning period is also going to be there to tune the parameters, the new parameters of the system. Some parameters are going away. For example, in theory, we had a really good idea with something called a hash distance factor that is part of V6. That is one of the two factors, the other one being stake, that determines the incentives or distribution of rewards to the people contributing to the infrastructure, running nodes. And it has a good reason why it's there, because it has a technical function, because the network addressing of knowledge assets operates on this concept of distance. If you're too far from some knowledge asset in this abstract space, your node is not supposed to hold it, and therefore it's not supposed to be incentivized. But this is a great theoretical idea. Turns out that in real life environments, nobody was happy with it. Not the community, not the builders, the developers, the stakers, nobody. So that one is going away, and that's an example of a learning that looks great on paper, doesn't work in practice. So in order to not sort of have some perfect RFC and it's on paper and then we deploy it and tada, it's perfect. We have this tuning period where we're going to be basically tuning the system so that it runs in the way that optimal way, basically, that we can get it to the best scalability and utility. So tuning period ends with 8.1 release. 8.1 also brings the other major feature of V8, which is actually relevant to the incentives, called random sampling. So random sampling is a new proof system. For those who've been around for some time, they know that the nodes in the DKG are sending some proofs to the blockchain in order to collect these rewards. Otherwise, if they don't prove that they're actually hosting the DKG, they cannot collect rewards, and wouldn't make sense. So this new system is much more scalable, and it's going to be turned on after all of the tuning has passed. Past that, 8.2, and we expect this 8.1 to happen Q1. For generally first half of Q1 is what we expect. And then let's say within the second half of Q1, we expect the Collective Programmatic Treasury to be deployed. So that's going to be the V8.2 release, which is going to take this into account, and the Treasury is going to be deployed on NeuroWeb. So basically, the updated version is going to take this into account. So roughly that's the timeline. It's not the entire timeline. There's a lot of things that are also happening in parallel, especially on NeuroWeb. But in general, those are, let's say, the three key milestones for the next 4 months, let's say, that we expect to hit mainnet in that sequence.
Yeah, if I may provide some color to the how things look like internally, it's not just the V8 that is being built out and about to be released, shielded from what's being done by users and users being onboarded onto the network, usually via DevNet, and then as soon as the V8 is up and running, some serious breakers are to be broken because of the scalability that is needed by these new solutions that are being deployed, and it's quite hot, I must say, within the development team, where they need to develop the most scalable decentralized knowledge network that was ever built, whilst be onboarding very serious companies onto this new technology. So it's almost like building a very fast car, and whilst building it, the car is moving, and you need to be ideally also onboarding passengers. And this is how things look like in our team. Have been like this in the last few weeks, months.
Yeah, I mean, it might be, if you're a thrill seeker, I could see that you might like riding in a car that's being simultaneously constructed
Yeah.
while you're in it. Like I just read about some new tourist attraction in China that's like a 5,000-foot ladder that you climb that's suspended between two cliffs, like thousands of feet in the air. So the kind of person that likes that will probably like this example that you gave.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could have easily just film it and then, or just stream it via Pump Fun or something, and people would be betting. It's so hot and there's so much adrenaline, a lot of sweat going out. So no, just joking. Our devs are the real devs, not like the devs on the Pump Fun.
Yeah, I met several of them at DKG Con, so I can definitely vouch for that.
The real devs, not the Pump Fun
yes,
devs.
Correct. Yes, I met several of the OriginTrail developers at DKG Con. So the final question I have for the two of you, which it's been kind of hinted at a little bit, and Branimir just kind of made a mention of it in his response to my previous question, is how does NeuroWeb, the NeuroWeb blockchain, play into all of this? And are there any kind of interesting developments we can expect on NeuroWeb following the V8 launch?
I'll just provide somewhat short answer, then Branimir can go more into details. NeuroWeb, which used to be called OriginTrail Parachain and was later on renamed, its original mission was to be the DKG tailored blockchain, basically. So an ideal partner for this neuro-symbolic AI that is now unfolding. And it has become more than that. During the past few months, we have figured out that it can become, and it has become, demonstrably the most scalable chain in terms of how much transactions and how much it can support the growth of the DKG. So that's one important factor. And the second important factor is that since it's based on substrate, it's based on it's attached on Polkadot's relay chain, which is also undergoing through several it's going through a very important evolutionary phase right now, and it is also bringing the so-called OpenGov functionalities, which are what Branimir pointed out earlier on, super important for this humans in the loop element needed to ensure that collective programmatic treasury is functioning the way it should be functioning, and that any governance mechanism linked to either development or to the distribution of value is to be properly established in the future, and it's already being pretty much enacted in order to confirm the paranets and in order to confirm the NeuroWeb updates. So the NeuroWeb has grown in its importance, and it has actually gone much, much further than we would have ever hoped for. There are some things that we need to still complete, and they're actually coming to completion, such as collators nodes, so you'll be able to stake and earn more Neuro, so have a bigger say in the ecosystem, which is going to be super important. Bridge is yet to be established. We are also in talks with the Polkadot teams, seeing if there are some possibilities for additional cores to be enabled for NeuroWeb, which would, needless to say, even further expand the potential of the DKG. And there are some other OpenGov or kind of governance initiatives within Polkadot, which are highly compatible also with what we do here at OriginTrail and more narrowly at NeuroWeb. So there are several potentials for network effects. There's complementary value to what's being built in other ecosystems, and right now also Polkadot is opening doors to Ethereum builders to more seamlessly transition to Polkadot, and in that way, that also increases the potential for the DKG when they see, for how many exceptional uses neuro-symbolic AI DKG can be used for. Other builders can come in via the already established kind of bridges or the doors. They call them XCM channels on Polkadot. So that's kind of the high level view, and Brana, I'm sure you have plenty to say to add to the NeuroWeb's current standing and what we expect quite imminently to take place in terms of the updates on the NeuroWeb.
Yeah, I think that the most interesting thing short term for anybody who wants to engage with the ecosystem will be to be the neuro staking, basically, that gets enabled when collators launch. So you're going to be able to, just as you can delegate your track to nodes on the DKG, you're going to be able to delegate neuro to collators on the running the chain. Basically, you'll also be able to run a collator if you want. So which basically is also going to earn you you and the delegators with you shared neuro tokens. So that's going to be very exciting. I think very similar level of excitement, if not even bigger, compared to when track staking launched. So that's going to be very, very interesting, and we're looking to have that soon after V8 DKG launches. And yeah, like you said, the important thing outside of the CPT we talked about is the bridge. So there's it's finally coming to fruition. So that one's going to be very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, the NeuroWeb is gonna get a bunch of not just new utility, but also new ways to interact with it and build with it. There's also things brewing in the back, including improvements that come together with the Polkadot, as you mentioned. So a lot of different updates that we just inherit based on what substrate gets improved with. And we're working with the team of Parity, as you mentioned, not just for additional cores, but also to tune the existing system so that it can scale even further, so that we can ultimately see even bigger blocks at even lower transaction times, hopefully. So we can really put Neuro at a place where it's the most, how would I say, the most logical and the most DKG friendly chain out of all of them, both in terms of price, but also just in terms of what it offers. So yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I'm really looking forward to Neuro getting these couple of new major upgrades that are coming with it, and the CPT getting deployed.
Yeah, very, very exciting. We are a little over time here, and it's quite late for our friends in Europe. So I'm not going to be able to get to all of the questions that came in, where I'm sure we'll have another episode in the near future where we will collect audience questions. So if I'm not answering your question here, or it wasn't answered during the course of the live stream, please save it and submit it for the next time we take audience questions. I did see one interesting question came in that maybe one of you can take in like 30 seconds before we log off. I think it might be kind of a fun way to end it. But somebody was asking if there are any potential use cases for financial markets for the DKG, which is something that I guess, I don't know, I've never really thought about, but maybe you two have an interesting answer.
Yeah, there certainly are. And a smaller, let's say, venture into the financial industry has already been done with a group building the chat analyst, and this is now gaining new expansions. So the financial industry is just kind of one subsegment of things that we see and that fall under our purview. So we don't have much, let's say, to talk about when it comes to nitty-gritty details in that sector. But there's certainly being some exciting things built, needed for financial industry, where precision is absolutely required. Also within the ESG space, where a lot of reporting has to be done, also linked to also financial performance of companies. And there's still a lot of inefficiencies, and this is again somewhere where we cannot just simply use the LLMs, and we have users coming to us, entities, and they're requesting to see how they can build such a solution, and we provide some of the examples from which they can learn. And we this week we had a call with over a dozen of European authorities from, so one call, several state state representatives came into that call, along with European Commission, where we were able to share, the capabilities of what OriginTrail can do. And those agencies, national agencies, some of them were also linked to, financial industry from the banking sector. So I'm sure plenty of imagination is already being applied to see things come to fruition also in that sector. Yeah. Was that the entirety of the question?
That was it.
That was it.
That's what this person wrote. So, yeah, I mean, I think it also goes to the point I was saying earlier, which is like the unique thing about this being multi-blockchain, being multi-niche, multi-industry, is that like it's hard to think of an industry or a sector where one could not apply the technology and see some sort of benefit or find some sort of use case. So
yeah, I mean, knowledge is a really universally applicable thing, right? So it can be all over. I mean, knowledge graphs have been in the financial industry actually for quite some time. They use it for all kinds of things, compliance, fraud detection, for example. I think I remember seeing Neo4j had something with this. But generally also 360 view recommendations. I could totally see Rivalut having a knowledge graph as well, or such bank applications. So there's plenty of those because our knowledge is universally valuable, right? And it can be valuable in different contexts. Maybe you just see it at one point. For example, you mentioned the chicken, like tracking of food is sometimes enabled by actually not having documentation that was specifically designed for that case, but rather was some form of documentation such as papers when something was bought, or invoices or things like that. You can actually connect that and see. You can create a history, and so data has multiple purposes. And when it turns into knowledge, when it's not just raw data, like raw materials, then you can use it for all kinds of things. It's very, very universal, right? So also for the financial industry, I would not be surprised to see many use cases of DKG not just because of the knowledge graph, but because it's natively integrated with the blockchain. So it has all of these capacities and all of the standards that are supported, both integrating with the most important wallet ecosystems, but also the standards such as the ERC standards from the Ethereum ecosystem, W3C standards from generally the entire web ecosystem, and even C2PA standards for content provenance. So it all fits into knowledge graph. It's like, it's really the best technology for managing knowledge that was ever invented by humans, and probably will stay like that for a very long time. So financial, it's another form of DeSci. It's another sector where you can see DKG for sure being very useful.
I think that's a great way to end this episode. I see some more questions coming in the chat. I apologize. Ask the questions again next episode, and we'll try to get to some more questions next time. But thank you. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. All 3,000 plus of you concurrent viewers that are watching right now. Thank you for staying till the end and staying up late. If you are not based in the US like I am, I appreciate it. Thank you to Žiga and to Branimir as well for staying up late. I know it's past 9 o'clock there, I think. I'm sure it's been a long day for you. We appreciate your perseverance and your dedication to the podcast and to OriginTrail. And I guess we'll see everybody on the next episode, where I'm sure we will have more exciting things to talk about, the V8 launch, how it's going. I don't know. You'll have to tune in next time and find out. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And
Thanks, man.
race on.